Hello everyone, I hope you're all having a good day. I'm Natasha, a full-time artist from the UK, and in this video I'm going to share my top 30 Caran Luminance pencils. So the idea behind this video, the reason I created it in the first place, is because I have been travelling backwards and forwards between Surrey, where I live with my fiance and where my studio is, to Suffolk, where my mum lives. And I don't want to keep taking so many art materials back and forth with me. So I decided to put together a smaller collection of Luminance pencils to keep at my mum's house. I'll swatch all of the pencils and I'll talk you through why I decided to include the colours I have. And I should just mention that I have one extra pencil, and that's the Derwent Drawing Chinese White, because that's the best white pencil I've come across so far. So I decided to keep that with this set of 30 Luminance in Suffolk. Okay, let's have a look at these and let's get swatching. The sketchbook I'm going to be swatching in today is a Royal Talens Art Creation sketchbook, and I'm just going to label all of the swatches before I start so that you can see very clearly which colours I'm swatching, and make notes if you want to add to your own collection if you see something you particularly like. But I'm going to be talking you through the colours as we go, and I'll also hold them up at the end so you can see the colours a little more clearly. I'll be swatching the colours lightly and also a little bit more firmly so you can see the range of tone you can get with them. And I'm going to start with the pink white pencil. So this is a really useful one to have. I love this really subtle, soft shade of pink, and I also like to use it with the dark indigo. So if you go over the top of the dark indigo pencil, which you'll see later, with the pink white, you get this amazing electric blue colour, so it's quite useful for layering. This one is the Burnt Sienna 10%, and I've included this because I love this slightly vintage dusky pink colour. I've included the Sepia 10% because, again, this is a very soft, muted, earthy colour, and I think it's quite a useful colour to have in your palette. Violet grey is one of my favourite Luminance colours ever, so it had to be included. You may notice that it's kind of similar to Sepia 10%, so if you wanted to reduce this collection and make it a little bit smaller, you could easily cut out one of these colours. Silver grey is one of my favourite subtle blue greys ever, and I love to use it in particular for skies. The next three colours are all going to be the different variations of Payne's Grey. So the first one is Payne's Grey 30%, and then it will be Payne's Grey 60%, and then the Payne's Grey. I like to have all three of these just because Payne's Grey is one of my favourite colours, and I find this shade of blue grey just so useful for so many things, and it really suits my way of working. So that's why I've included all three. I would say if you didn't want to include all three of these, I would choose the Payne's Grey 30% and the Payne's Grey and just omit the 60%. Because I think you could get away with just having the lighter version and the darker version. Those of you who know me will know that I love blue, so I wanted to choose several different blues for this colour palette, just so I had a really nice choice. And the first one I went with was Genuine Cobalt Blue. Now, I've heard this blue pronounced in several different ways, but I'm going to say chrysocolla blue. I don't know whether that's right, but it's a beautiful, bright, vibrant blue, which I thought would be a nice addition to this palette. Ultramarine is a colour I'm starting to use more and more, so that had to be included. I think all of these blues look really nice together, and several of them could be used for night landscapes, which is one of my favourite subjects to draw and paint. Prussian blue is just a beautiful dark blue, and yes, this one will definitely be perfect for night landscapes. Dark indigo is one of my favourite and most used colours from the Luminance range. As I said earlier, you can overlay it with the pink white and you get this amazing electric blue, but it can also be used as a black essentially if you use it really firmly. So if you wanted to cut down on this collection again, choose either dark indigo or black. You don't really need both of them, but because I love working in black sometimes, I included that too, as you'll see later on. A colour I just don't really use very often in my work is yellow, so I decided instead of having a true yellow in this collection, I would have an earthy yellow, so I'm going to show you what I chose for that later on. But I also wanted a couple of yellow greens, so green ochre is the first one. I really love this kind of goldy green. It's just a beautiful colour and really useful for landscapes. Olive yellow is one of my newer favourites from the Luminance range of colours. It's a perfect one for spring landscapes and just lovely to have to add a slightly lighter, brighter shade of green. Spring green is the brightest green I have in this collection, and it's a nice contrast to a lot of the darker greens that I'm often more attracted to. Chromium oxide green seems to be a green that I always have in my palette now, whether that's my watercolour palette or my acrylics palette or even my coloured pencil palette. Moss green is a really good all-rounder kind of green. It's got a slightly more, I would say, yellow undertone than the chromium oxide green or the next one, which is going to be the dark phthalocyanine green. Yeah, it's just a really good addition. So dark phthalocyanine green and the next one, which is dark sap green. Both of these I love, but they are quite similar. So if I had to choose one or the other, I would choose personally dark sap green because I really love the blue undertone and the depth of it. But if you were going to limit your palette a little bit more, I would definitely say lose one of these greens because they are fairly similar. I love having both, but you could definitely get away with just one of them. Raw sienna is kind of the colour I chose as my yellow. It was either going to be that or yellow ochre, but there was something about this shade of raw sienna that I really liked. So that's a really useful colour, and it's in this palette as my yellow. Cornelian is a really beautiful natural orange, and it's going to be very useful for my upcoming autumn landscapes. As I've mentioned, I like to have quite a few earth colours, so natural russet had to be included. It's a lovely reddish brown, perfect for all sorts of landscapes, but also for trees. Burnt sienna is a colour I often have in my palettes, so I kind of felt that had to be included. I really like to have a range of different browns, and obviously the more reddish, deeper burnt sienna is a really lovely one to have. Raw umber 10% is a lovely soft stone colour, and I love the subtlety of it. I've included French grey 10% because I always seem to love the French grey pencils that Luminance does. But if you wanted to cut down on this collection again, you could either choose raw umber 10% or the French grey 10%. They're very, very similar. French grey 30% is a really warm brown grey, and it's a nice contrast to the cooler blue greys that I have. And yes, I totally did this swatch the wrong way round. Both raw umber and sepia are kind of palette essentials for me, and because I paint or draw a lot of landscapes, they're always really useful colours for me to have. And finally black, because I always find black so useful. I use it a lot for the little buildings I put into my landscapes. I love it for if I'm, for example, drawing a bird, I like to use black in some of the details, maybe for the beak or the legs or something like that, for the eyes. So it's a very useful colour for me to have. But of course you could cut out the black if you wanted to just have the dark indigo instead. Yeah, you could easily cut out one of those colours if you wanted to make this a 25 colour palette rather than a 30 colour palette. So here's a nice close-up of all of the colours so you can really see how they look. I'm really pleased with this colour palette, and For me, for the way I work personally, I think that it pretty much covers everything. The only colour I'm intending to add is the anthraquinoid pink, which is a brighter, more coral pink. And of course, this would make this a 31 colour palette, which is a little bit uneven and strange. But that's the colour I'll be taking back with me next time, because I feel like I could just do with a little bit of brighter pink in there. Okay, if you enjoyed this video, please let me know. If you stayed to the end, let me know your favourite colour from the Caran Luminance range, because I would love to know. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please consider subscribing, because it would be lovely to have you as part of our community on here. Okay, take care everyone, stay creative, and I'll talk to you again very soon.